Hello guys, welcome to this podcast. It's been a while. Yes, where should I start? I'm a little bit unprepared because I actually thought I wouldn't do this video. This is a reaction and also my view on certain things that happened over the last few days, and in a way also the last few years, you might say, with stuff that happens within the especially paleo art community. For quite a lot of time now, I'm observing how the paleo art community is doing and how it's developing and in what direction it in general goes. Personally, I usually have a very positive experience, I have to say. You know, I have a lot of fun online, sharing stuff, taking part in various activities that arise within the community and discussing with people new discoveries or artwork and related matters. But as recent events have shown, I might be, I hope not a rare case, but there are quite a few of people who have problems with the paleo art community in especially because of reasons. It's quite a wide range I want to cover here, and as I said, I'm a little bit unprepared. Brian Eng basically started this whole discussion anew. I mean, there were quite a few discussions like this over the last years, but he brought it definitely back into focus recently on Twitter, and with a few tweets and subsequent reactions on it. I also made my own thread explaining my view on all this. Yeah, and there are really quite a few people who are have problems with the negativity in the community that rises usually in the comment sections below new artwork that is posted, or in private chat rooms that can also appear, but more on that later. Yeah, what you can sometimes observe for those who don't know, when you go into these groups like the paleo artists group on Facebook or Twitter is not so bad, probably related to the shorter amount of characters you can type in there, but also DeviantArt and other places that people tend to deliver critique in a way that makes me how should I say that? It gives me a headache, you know, especially when I see people that I respect and whose opinions and skills I value. You know, when I see these people going at each other with these senseless debates, or I can't even call that debate sometimes, because it goes way beyond decent human arguing. You know, that's I think something that a lot of people have problems with. Really bringing across critique or in general comments in a way that it doesn't hurt, apparently. Which is, you would think that people are trying not to come over as complete assholes, but that's in some cases apparently not the case. Yeah, and we see senseless nitpicking, although nitpicking itself, I think by now that nitpicking is part of the profession, you know. It just depends on how how you deliver your critique. And I think quite a few people in the paleo art community are really lacking the skill to bring across critique as constructive and non-harmful, which is really a shame. We see even cases of racial slurs and sexual abuse and stuff like that. It's really not funny. And I mean, I have very little experience with this myself. I usually get nice comments, and when I get critique, it's usually mindful. But other peoples were actually driven out of the community by that, and don't do paleo art anymore. Quite a few, as Brian said, came out of the woods as a reaction on his tweets, that they got so many negative comments that they didn't want to take part in that anymore, and left the community or went into just the fringes, the friendly fringes, let's say it's this way, and only communicating with people where they know they will react in a decent way. You know, people who they know can be kind. Yet it really strikes me how many people don't know how to argue in a decent way, or don't want to argue in a decent way. Someone recently called this behavior shitsplaining. I think I have to thank Luigi Gascal for that term. It brings it quite on point, I think. People who go in and be like, I got you, you know, so you made this wrong, that wrong. And I think in Brian's video, I should probably mention, Brian made a video on all this, because Twitter, of course, allows you not really to have long texts on these matters, and speaking about it is always better than having a long text, I guess, to really bring across the emotions you have and the intentions behind your words. Yeah, but you see so many comments where, although not on my pages, but on other comment sections, where people just go in and you made that wrong and this wrong, and that's not the way to do it. You know, it's so easy to say, yeah, don't be a dick, but you have to consider artists are not always people of a very robust mental health. You know, we put hours and hours and hours of work into new art pieces, or to learn new skills and stuff like that. And many artists have low self-esteem and self-confidence. And so going in boldly and claiming that somebody made something wrong can really hurt people. And then I mean, I even saw comments where the artist said, "Hey, please don't do this. This is painful to me, you know, and I have I tend to get depressive because of such comments over time." And people are like, you know, I don't care. I do this anyway, you know. This is just unbelievable assholery, I think. Now people are coming in. This is a reason for this video. That Brian posted this very, very nice video, I think, where he explains his reasoning and how to make better commentary and overall be a better person online in the paleo art community. And then I see comments that say, "Oh, but he spread so much negativity himself," and blah, blah, blah. Don't do this. This is so pointless, you know. First of all, he even apologizes for some stuff he said in the past, or maybe just a week ago, you know. He specifically pointed to a tweet that he posted 1 year ago, where he said this was probably not the best way to say it, and I'm sorry for that, you know. And still people are going, oh, but you are spreading negative vibes and stuff. First of all, this has nothing to do with the video itself, and even the negative or rude stuff that Brian may have spread don't invalidate the points he makes. So it's absolutely senseless and is on borderline to whataboutism, I would say, to go at it and what? But you are a toxic personality yourself. Why do you come with this now? And that's the reason I'm doing right now this podcast video, whatever, because I think it's I wanted to raise these points, how pointless these discussions are, in that sense, that there are way worse behaviors out there. You know, I saw a few razor rude comments by Brian, certainly, but usually they didn't directly attack someone, but it was defensive behavior, usually. Sometimes overly defensive behavior from my point of view, but I think when you have seen his video, you will understand that these are reactions born from a certain frustration. Getting all these nitpicky comments without any diplomatic side to it, that you become just very frustrated over time. You know, you can't just stand anymore to get all these comments that go into the direction, oh, I try to find something bad about your artwork, so I can point it out. People have to consider the impact of their words. It's, of course, there are people who do this deliberately, but I think many of these nasty comments are probably not meant that toxic as they may appear, because we don't, as said, we see only the words, the written word, and language begins to lack certain things when we write it down. It's not comparable to speech. And of course, they are just lazy people who don't want to go into, of course, being kind also needs some effort sometimes. You know, when you see something that is definitely wrong, but you don't want to hurt someone, you have to get a little bit into it and say, okay, yes, this is nice and that's not so bad, but have you seen this and that, and are you sure you want to do it this way? And this takes, of course, time. You have to consider what you write down, and some people are apparently relatively lazy when it comes to this. And of course, people lack a certain restraint oftentimes online. There is a phenomenon known as online disinhibition, which is characterized by lack of restraint and toward expressing anything. Basically, this can be very positive. Of course, you know, you open up more to people, but it can also mean that you totally lack restraint to put angry and senseless comments online, because you are anonymous. You don't see the person directly, and the communication is asynchronous, and there is a certain deficit of empathy very quickly, because you not directly know the person. You have no direct contact. And I usually go by the rule to communicate with people online the same way I do it in real life. I try to comment and chat with people in the same way I discuss this issue face to face. But of course, not everybody does it. And I don't think we will ever come there where we have this, to have discussions in the same polite way we usually have them face to face. There are some things we should maybe consider, nonetheless, when we get these nasty comments and so on. And I think that is, for example, consider the age of the person on the other side. It is possible that you know, you just posted your picture you worked 1 month on or something, and then you get a comment like, this has too much feathers, and why does the T-Rex has lips and stuff like that, and obviously in a rather rude way, you know, and it doesn't matter on what topic now, but you should, when you get these comments, maybe consider, okay, maybe this is a 10-year-old little dino crazy boy whose world basically just got turned upside down because he read online that T-Rex maybe had extra oral tissue, as some call it, and maybe some proto-feathers on its body, you know, because people, and that's not all only for young people, also older ones, sometimes even especially older ones, that we are emotionally invested in the things we follow. You know, we are enthusiasts, we are paleo enthusiasts, and without emotionally attachment and investment, we wouldn't be that in the first place. But there are, of course, cases where people get so attached to a certain idea, to a certain picture. You know, everybody builds in their mind a certain picture of deep time, and when this picture is broken or falsified by new discoveries or just by new artwork, this can hurt people. And some say, okay, this is fine, I will adjust to this new reality. Others don't. And I also don't want to be the guy who says, oh, just swallow down your pride and all your years of love and emotional investment, you know, and just accept it now. But I think we usually have to be more open to new ideas and embrace the process of science, raise the illusion we create through paleo art, and also sometimes through science, or especially through science journalism, because science journalism and popular books often tend to portray things as much more certain as they usually are. But this uncertainty is often not reflected in the discussions online. Yeah, I think as someone who receives such comments, I think you should have this in mind, that on the other side of the internet connection sits someone who just can't take it that these fond memories of scaly, bare-teethed T-Rex are probably coming to an end, and that that science is constantly in motion. Some people are not flexible enough for that. That's sad, but we can't really change it. We can only encourage people to really stay up to date and basically make to incorporate these new ideas and so into their hypothetical picture of the past. But of course there are certain lines we also should draw. You know, we should be intolerant towards intolerance. That's so-called Popper's paradox. You know, we should accept that there are people who are just assholes, but we shouldn't tolerate it. Definitely, yeah. It's really a very, very complex issue. You know, I think it's even more complex than Brian portrays it, because we also because of all these different factors that play into the creation of a nasty comment. You know, sometimes the person maybe just had a bad day when he or she posted this comment or complained about something, anything, you know. And sometimes the toxic elements really begin to come out because people react overly protective. You know, of course, you shouldn't tolerate these toxic comments, but you also shouldn't be you also shouldn't react to them in the same toxic way. I mean, you should try to get some room mentally between you and the comments. Sometimes I think it's better to let some days pass before you actually react to some of these comments, because it's in the heat of the discussion you might say things that you might regret in hindsight. And of course, it can hurt more. You can get more hurtful comments when you react in such a way, because it's such a, it goes back and forth, and then more people are coming into such discussions, and it's awful how this sometimes can happen. You know, you see sometimes the discussions which start with two people going at it, and then more and more people come in, and it only gets worse. Okay, so I just went through my first recording and edited some of the crap I rambled about. So at some point it sounds a little like I'm defending toxic behavior, which I want to clarify. I do not. And I have the feeling a lot of the stuff I talk about is self-evident, you know, common sense and stuff, but looking at the past years, I realize that's not the case. That's why I take my time here to explain all this. I mean, some of this is really like an echo of Brian's video, and I try to add some little new bits here and there. Yeah, I try to raise some awareness for the potential reasons why these toxicity arises. But of course, there are just also a few people who really like to shitpost, to shitstorm other people's art, and they also sometimes seem even to organize themselves to bring people down to their knees. And that's just horrible. And I have no idea how such people can look into a mirror and like what they see. You know, it's a lack of self-reflection is something I oftentimes observe. You know, many people write just something down and not really take a step back and consider, could this maybe hurt someone? You know, could this be interpreted in a different way? Yeah, but at the same time, I want to raise awareness for this very complex environment a community or a comment section can be. You know, there are so many things that play into it. You know, not only you know, there's a person who makes the artwork itself, people who are commenting there, what platform they are commenting on, you know, how much room they have there. It all plays into it. And I also want on this podcast to maybe give some ideas how to ease this pain, but also maybe some ideas how to change things. It's very loose still right now. You know, I should be painting right now. I have a large project I'm working on, and I'm going out of my way here to produce this shitty little podcast to voice my ideas and reasons and explain a little what's going on. I think something important we should always consider when we comment, but also when we produce an artwork, and that's something that Brian also raises, what's our intention? You know, what is our audience? What do I want to say with this artwork? And that's something we usually don't learn in paleo art, because everybody is so focused on scientific credibility and stuff like that. And that way the artistic part often lags a little bit behind, you know, to make the philosophical foundation often lacks profoundly, one might say. Maybe that, of course, that's not something for everybody, but I think it can tremendously help to have a better community climate when we take time to think about what we want with our artwork, but also what the artwork I'm commenting on might mean or want. Also, I think we should train ourselves in forgiveness, one may say. I don't want to say, hey, that guy sexually abused you online, forgive him now, but in cases of meaner arguments and so on, it oftentimes appears to me like kindergarten politics, you know, where oh, this guy said something awful about my artwork, now I hate him for eternity. You know, don't be this guy. Try to take not everything too serious. And I know this can be very difficult for reasons I mentioned earlier, with artists being not always mentally robust for such things. But I think we all should try to come to a point where it doesn't hurt us anymore that much. But of course, our focus should be on hit prevention, not how to deal with hits, I would say. And I think one important part there is to have people in the community, authorities you might say, that watch over such conversations and go in and say, stop, not this way, when such things happen. And I think also, or especially in private chats or discords or servers or something like that. Because I think before these nasty comments, many of them appear under the artwork of that artist itself. They often are formulated and discussed in private chats. You know, you first have to arrive at this point where you are, yes, I go in and I post this now, you know, everybody likes it, but I say it's shit. And I think even in these environments where people discuss art without the presence of the artist, community administrators should have an eye on these discussions, because I think many of these kids, let's say it this way, search for improvement in these smaller groups, in their peer group, you might say, before they go out there and spread toxic behavior. But I also think we should take privacy in these private chats and discords and so on serious. So even if you see a nasty comment, don't use it to expose someone with it, you know, or even if it's in an open discussion, but the person acts like it's a private chat. You know, this is not the way to do this. It feels, it tastes very bad, I would say. So this is a shout out to all community managers to have a close look on their little part of the community to ensure that things goes smooth and friendly, even in such situations. Of course, there are people you can't really stop with this. You know, they might form their own little groups of trolls or shit posters, or not shit posters, these are meme guys, but people who like to inflict pain, let's say it this way. And in these cases, yeah, ban them, block them, whatever it takes to get rid of these very toxic elements until they are able to change and see how much they did wrong. And I know this is it's very controversial, because pain is received very, very differently. It's very subjective how much pain you feel from such negativity. And for example, I need a lot of harmony around me, otherwise I go crazy. And so I rather feel the pain of others when I see these senseless, stupid discussions which help nobody. I want to see the paleo art community to further expand and grow and become more mature. Also to, as Brian mentioned, to better communicate what we stand for to the outside world, to people outside the community, so they don't get the same feeling about our community that some people have about the Star Wars community, for example, you know, where they even cancelled movies, the production of movies, because of toxic elements of the community. I think we are still far from that, but I think at this point we should really try to prevent the rise of toxic elements in the community to an extent that makes it no longer fun for people who are involved in it. And I think on this little note, I will end this video now. I think I will probably have tons of more things to say in hindsight, but this video is already much longer than Brian's one, and at some point you have to end it. I would like to hear your insight on this matters. And yeah, see you next time, maybe in a live stream, maybe in a comment section on Facebook or on Twitter. Bye bye. Oh, wait, before I forget it. I wanted to save this for a book I'm currently working on, sorry. But I actually wrote a paragraph about all these issues, and I came up with some Paleo Art Codex of Honor. Paleo Art Creed, you might say. And maybe this might help people, you know, to have this short list of things on the back of your mind when you communicate online in the Paleo Art community. Maybe this, I don't know, but just to sum all this up, I wrote these down. So, you shall not steal from other people's work. You shall not troll your fellow paleo enthusiasts. You shall consider all other possibilities before you assume that someone tries to hurt you. You shall critique constructively or not. Be open to new ideas even if you don't like them. You shall not speak definite judgments. Know your memes and how to avoid them or cultivate them. Forgive those who did you wrong. Consider the age and maturity of the person you interact with. Spamming makes you no friends. Love what you do, not the illusions you create. Try to do own research before approaching someone else. Give credit where credit is due. Try to appreciate the good more than hating the bad. And, last but not least, attack the arguments, not the person who makes them. Okay, these are really now my last words. Okay, bye.